Hey everybody, welcome to another amazing episode of Soul Chat. I am your host, Ebony Tutora, and today this is a solo episode. Shout out to my girl, Carla Love, one of my BFFs who we have amazing soul chat conversations with, which by the way, if you do not have friends that you can have soul conversations with, I'm just saying call it in for 2025, okay? Because we need this. So we had a conversation. You guys see me looking down because I had to write notes on this. Usually I just go from the top of my dome, the crown, the higher space above, and pull it down. But this one I needed to write some notes for. So first and foremost, if you're new to this podcast, welcome. This is Soul Chat, where we have conversations that go deeper than the surface to help you gain clarity, insight, and wisdom that we all need in this day and age. So this conversation is called Faith It versus Fuck It, right? If any of you have seen the most comical Instagram post of an older Hispanic lady who is basically sharing, listen, the older I got, I have no fucks to give, right? And I have learned that in this self-love journey, in this self-awareness journey, in the mindfulness journey, we have these stages and phases where we might feel like fuck it, I don't care anymore, right? And if you do not like this language, I just like to consider it a sazon. It's a little bit of seasoning, to emphasize the things that we feel. But a lot of times we reach these stages, especially when in the self-love journey, where you just kind of release, like, and some people stay there in the fuck it phase, right? We're like, fuck it, fuck that, fuck you, like, fuck all of this, right? It's about me. I'm growing. I'm loving myself. But there's another layer to it. And that's the layer we're going to talk about today. So, what I thought about with this conversation is maybe it's not about not giving a fuck, right? There's another layer to it. Maybe it's about, you know, choosing to care about the right things, because when we're saying fuck it, we're like, oh, I just don't care about that anymore, right? But it's choosing to care about the right things. And the reason why it's called faith it versus fuck it is because when you increase your faith, you're more willing to let go, right? Which is the hardest thing for all of us to do, of family relationships, personal relationships, jobs, even as a business owner, sometimes clients, if you're needing to pivot into a new section, it's challenging to let go because you have some level of uncertainty, right? Or you have some level of attachment, or you have some level of neediness, or whatever you want to call it, right? There's many different stages and reasons why we hold on to things. So as we increase our faith, we're more willing to let go. And when you let go, you really don't hold on to that perception of fuck it, right? It actually doesn't serve you, because it's almost like you have a chip on your shoulder, right? And I've shared this with some of my clients, which I'm like, girl, you got a chip on your shoulder, okay? And while that's a level and a phase that is absolutely valuable, because a lot of times the reason why we get to that point is because we wake up to all the crap we've tolerated up until that point. We wake up to the ways that we've neglected ourselves. We wake up to the ways that we haven't been authentic and honest with ourselves. And now we're like, nope, not doing it, right? Like, it stops now. It stops with me. It's not happening, right? So we have this mentality of like, yeah, fuck that, And it is a saying that I do say. If y'all have heard me on Clubhouse for some years, that saying is FTS, which is fuck that shit. And that really is a different perspective, because I'm saying that to negative opinions I might have about myself, limitations that I might be imposing on myself. I'm like, oh, fuck that shit. I'm not going to sit here and be imposed and limiting myself, right? I'm not going to sit here and allow the opinion of someone else. And again, this is almost the same conversation, right? But how are we processing it in an elevated way? And I believe faith is that elevated way, because when you have faith, you understand why you have to let something go. When you have faith, you understand that there may be a sacred contract that is there, and that's the reason why that's such a hard lesson for you, right? You have faith in understanding why people are the way they are, right? And not being so attached to what you wish for them to be. And something that's really cool is like I'm in this yoga teacher training, trauma-informed yoga teacher training. And one of the things that has come up in this for this month's training was the different niyamas. And one of the chapters talked about pain as a route to enlightenment, right? A lot of us almost like want to live our lives pain-free, right? We're like, I don't want to experience that. I've learned. And sometimes in the growth and evolution journey, when you feel like, oh my God, like I'm learning this again, right? Like I thought I mastered this. I thought I had it down pat. I thought I loved myself, right? And it's like pain is a way to enlightenment, right? And when, again, going back to faith, which I wish I could show you the tattoo in the back of my neck that says faith, faith is, again, that route that helps us have deeper understanding, right? It has deeper understanding that it's the belief in the things unseen and the things uh, hoped for. I can't think of the whole scripture, but you know what I'm trying to say. Go look it up if you don't know the scripture. Put it in the comments. You're going to find it for me. But essentially, faith becomes a route of understanding as well, right? Where you don't sit there with that chip on your shoulder, like, oh, fuck that, fuck them, fuck it, right? Because sometimes that's a very self-sabotaging place to be. And it's not about having the chip on our shoulder. It's not, because then from that point, we're trying to prove something. It's almost like we're trying to prove to ourselves we're worthy. We're trying to prove to others we don't care. And I don't know about you, but that's energy I am leaving behind in 2023, 2024, and beyond, right? Because I don't need to prove to someone I don't care. I'm going to show them what actually does matter, right? I'm going to show them that there are things I care about. And one of these things ain't going to be going back and forth with you. And one of these things ain't going to be driving myself crazy trying to explain something to you that you are committed to misinterpret. And one of those things is not going to be schooling you and helping you grow and feeling like your growth is my responsibility because you're family or a loved one, which is kind of the same thing, right? Or in a relationship, right? So there's elevation that I believe the planet all needs to have. And these are just elevations in spaces I've been able to shift through, right? And it helps me feel more at peace, more in my knowing and in my center when I operate from this sense of like, okay, where do I need to increase my faith? Because if this thing is bothering me, that means that there's some level of surrender that's not happening, right? And that was one of the notes that I put, right? Increase faith equals surrender, equals increasing your intuition, right? Because when I surrender, I'm trusting that the positive thoughts, the positive possibilities that I know can be available, it means that I'm trusting that that can work out, right? And sometimes in relationships, maybe you don't want to let it go because deep down you don't believe you could get better. Especially women who've spent a lot of time and a lot of time in their lives in toxic spaces. We may not believe, and you may not want to admit this, powerful woman, okay? And this is why I'm here, just to check you a little bit, boo. But maybe the reality is you don't believe you could get better. So you're willing to sacrifice and stay for that thing that was better than that other thing, right? So now you have a good enough because it's better. But is it really helping you thrive? Is that man helping you increase your potential? Is he pouring into you wisdom? Does he help carry his load as well? It is a million different questions I would have to ask, right? Because a lot of times, and I've been there, right, where it's like, oh, it's better. So let me stay here. And then I even had men reflecting, well, at least I'm not putting my hands on you, sir. Sir, like the Ebony today is like, sir, you still ain't good enough for the elevation that I need, right? And that's what a relationship is, right? All relationships is that ability to increase who we are, right? There's a saying where they say you want to be around people who uh, help you to ask yourself better questions and not people who make you question who you are. Ashe, because that's crazy, right? And there are certain things and perspectives that we need to leave behind in 2020, I was gonna say 2025, 2024, because we are a planet in need of deeper increased faith. And listen, I love a good joke. If y'all look at my timeline, I love a good meme, okay? I love a good meme. I love a good laugh, okay? Because there's duality to the thoughts and the things that we think. And even as I elevate, I think, Ebony, do you really need to share that? Right? Do you need to share that comical post? I know it's funny, but do you need to share that? And is that where you're going? Right. And that's just like a topic for a whole nother debate because I'm like, I'm still gonna laugh. That's just my personality. Like, I can't tell you when it's gonna go or where I'm gonna elevate from that, but I do love a good laugh. However, when we talk about this conversation, right? And you know what I'm talking about. Because if you have this perspective of fuck it, because it's you want to sit there and say, well, I just don't care. I don't care about that. Let me give you a different stance. Just choose to care about the things you care about. You got to prove to nobody, not even yourself, about what you're going to be choosing to care about. You just need to choose, right? You just need to choose. And that's all wrapped in our inner child healing, right? Because the inner child has to prove, the inner teen, the inner young adult, we have to prove that, we've grown. We have to prove that, we are capable because no one ever saw us. No one ever congratulated us. Or not to say no one, for some of us, it just wasn't the people we expected it from. It wasn't the mother, it wasn't the father. Right. And as we heal and let those things go, as we honor and accept them for who they are, right? Even if you're sitting there thinking about, I ain't thinking about my childhood, like, fuck that. You got a chip on your shoulder, right? No, faith it and go there and see what things do you need to care about so that you can heal them, right? Sometimes you need to care that maybe you did make some bad decisions, right? Sometimes you need to care that you're rubbed the wrong way because you don't like that person. And then that leads down a trail of more introspection and inner thoughts, inner workings that help us to elevate this conversation, right? Because if we're only living in the space of, yeah, fuck that, I don't care, it's very indignant, right? It's not demure at all, right? It's demure to be like, I'm going to faith it and I'm going to increase my faith and I'm going to see where I need to surrender. I'm going to see where do I need to trust my intuition so I'm not showing up to life with this chip on my shoulder, but I'm understanding that this chip I got is a route for enlightenment. It's some pain that I've experienced, right? It almost reminds me, I remember sharing this with one of my clients who totally gets it. If you're from New York, I don't know where else they say this, but I know New York girls were like good for this, okay? Let's say it's an argument or something, you don't like the girl, whatever. And it's like, all right, be blessed. All right, girl, whatever, be blessed. Maybe they say it all over. Maybe it's the black girl thing. I don't know. But they were like, girl, be blessed. And I remember laughing with this one client, like, that's the type of blessing I don't want. Right. And it kind of comes off like, fuck that, right? Where it's like you wanna act like this is where you're at, but you're actually hurting inside. Right. And that fuck that is actually coming from a very hurt place where you're trying not to care. But instead, there are some things you need to care about, right? Because when you send someone a blessing like that, you're basically telling them curse you. You're basically telling them like I wish the worst for you, essentially, but you're trying to be nice about it and saying it in a nice way. But you and I both know ain't nobody want that type of blessing. Okay. When somebody like, girl, be blessed, F you girl and be blessed. You're like, oh, cooties, ill, no, I don't want that blessing, right? So this is really a conversation that goes deeper than the level of what we say. And that's probably one of the most valuable things I learned as a teacher, creating a program called 7 Days of Clarity and teaching that program. Every time I'd on the call with a potential client, every time I lead the sessions and listen to people's stories, listen to how they worded things, it was for me because it heightened my awareness of energy and what people really are saying, what they're really saying. And then there's another episode called How We Use Our Words, right, to elevate our lives. And that's important. That's important to understand that maybe when we're saying fuck it, we're actually in a hurt space, right? Maybe we're not 100% healed, right? But when you face it, you can surrender You can surrender for more understanding. You can let go to see what you may not be seeing. You can increase your faith to understand that everything you've been through is purposeful. And I don't say this as someone who always had that viewpoint. That took time. That took time. It took a lot of intention, a lot of self-reflection, and intention of desiring to feel that way. There was a point in my life where I desired to feel that way. And there was the intention that I set out there. I'm like, God, I know you said everything that happens to me is for me, but I'm still having a hard time internalizing that in my body space. Like my body doesn't believe that yet. My mind kind of like I get it, but I haven't internalized it yet where I can feel it to the core of who I am and have gratitude for my experiences. I knew I had overcome them. I knew that, yes, I did become better in a way, right? And this is one of the things I always talk about when I talk about these speeches I used to have. I used to always write speeches about turn your pain into power. It was almost like a buzz topic that everyone was saying, turn your pain into power, turn your pain into power, turn your pain into power. And then 2020 hit, and I was like, wait a minute. If you're not turning pain into peace, you ain't got nothing, right? Because it's easy to feel some pain and use that pain to motivate you to be better, right? Pain is a great motivator, right? And that's a part of the healing journey is, and I've already said that, right? Pain as a route to enlightenment. Understanding that every pain point that you've ever had to experience, the way to also turn that pain into something beautiful is to understand the gratitude, right? I've learned to have gratitude for my parents for what they were not to me because that's what produced the leader in me. That's what produced who you see today. So why would I still be crying about that, right? And these are stages and phases. So I'm just saying, if you are in a phase of that chip on your shoulder, being, yeah, nobody wants to be called bitter, but it does give a little bit of bitter energy, and it's okay. You know what I mean? Like we're not here to judge our experience and how we're processing things, right? Because there were a lot of things. If you listen to my podcast, if y'all listen to this podcast and you go back a few episodes, there were a lot of things I was bitter about. There were a lot of things I was angry about that I had to really heal from. And it continues to teach me that we continue to learn, we continue to grow. You've never really mastered something, right? But the one thing you can master is how you self-reflect. The one thing you can master is giving your mind a route to go that's going to lead to you experiencing the enlightenment you need, the expansion that you need, so that we can ultimately let things go. Because that's what that conversation is about, right? Surrender kind of fell in the middle. You have increased faith equals surrender equals increasing your intuition. That surrender is so important. So I pray this episode has been really helpful for you. I had to call my friend and be like, what was it that we were talking about that you were like, that was a podcast episode? Because these conversations help us to expand the way that we think about things, the way that we process them, the way that we internalize them, because everything happens at like a thought level. So while you can understand something at a thought level, it takes time to actually integrate into your being for you to then be acting in a way that's like, oh my God, I get that. And maybe I do have a chip on my shoulder. And healing 101 is be honest with yourself. At the very least, be honest with yourself. Be honest with where you're at. Be honest about the stuff you're bitter about. Be honest about the things that make your heart tighten up still, because that's not peace, right? If you can't think about a situation and call upon peace and feel peace in your body, you have not healed from that thing. And I'm saying that out of experience because I know when I'm holding on to something, it's because I haven't healed from it, right? And I'm learning to tell a different story, right? So at the end of the day, what are we talking about today? We're talking about faith it versus fuck it. So I pray you took some notes. I pray you have some amazing takeaways. And for those of you that are listening to the podcast, what helps the most is your comments, absolutely your likes, and your feedback. Leaving those comments on the YouTube is greatly appreciated. Leaving the comments on Spotify is greatly appreciated. And it helps the platform know this is a podcast worth being listened to. So even if you drop a heart, I am asking you. I get so many DMs. Oh my God, I love the episode. Oh my God, I love the episode. I don't see y'all's comments though. Where's your comments, friend? Where's your comments? But in all seriousness, that really does help to amplify this podcast as we go on to more and more and more and more episodes and more elevation and more co-hosts and guests. This is really something that I am passionate about. And I think if you're anyone out there that's thinking about starting a podcast, know that your voice is valuable and there's no way to perfect it and get it perfect, but just get it out there. Like that's the best you could do. And that's my ebb talk for today. So I pray this was so helpful. If you do not follow me yet, go follow me on Instagram at Queens Recognize Queens. That's where I post the most, as well as LinkedIn at Ebb Tutora, as I'm excited to really streamline and focus a lot of my services in different directions this year. But for now, have a blessed and amazing day. I will see you on the next podcast episode. Thank you so much for being here with me, and I will see you in the next episode. Have a blessed day.